Welcome to Freelance Sucks. Here we discuss the dark side of freelancing about which nobody usually talks out loud. In this show, we speak with experienced freelancers, and I'm sure listening to their stories helps you prepare for freelancers' challenges. My name is Yuri, I'm a community builder at Code Control and 9am.works, and my guest is Steve Folland. Rhymes with Holland, but not with the Netherlands. A podcaster, a community builder, and an experienced award-winning podcast editor and video creator with more than 20 years of professional experience. So, welcome, Steve.
Thanks for having me. I've never heard somebody say out loud the whole rhymes with Holland, but not with the Netherlands bit. But I'm glad that worked. I'm glad. You see, you said my surname perfectly.
It's easiest way to remember it because when I was preparing for this conversation, I was like, oh, I'm having a conversation with Steve. What is his name? Oh, Holland. Oh, Folland. Yes, exactly. So it's so much, you made it so much easier. Thank you very much for that.
I'm glad that worked.
And for you, what is the most challenging part of being a freelancer?
Oh, well, it used to be for sure being isolated, as in being the only freelancer I knew, which seems crazy now because I run a community for freelancers. I know so many. But yeah, when I started, I didn't know any. And actually it was hard. I didn't see that I was running a business because nobody was talking about it. Most of the day, I would just see my kids who at the time were like 1 and 4, maybe, like they were really little. So yeah, it was only when I first started going to a co-workspace that I realized the mini social interactions that you have with other humans, that I had been missing out on those. But they add it doesn't even have to be much, but just that little bit of chat that I would have with the person at the front desk or somebody while making a coffee kind of lifts you up. So yeah, that was what I found, I think, the most challenging.
So it's not anymore. And now, do you have the challenging part?
Well, I think probably the challenge that never goes away is pricing, to be honest. That it's easy if it's because I make podcasts and videos for people. There's so many different variables in what it is. And so I think it still comes down to that try not to second guess yourself as to what you think they might be willing to pay, whilst also, yeah, it's just hard, isn't it? Everybody knows it's hard. It's so much easier if you can kind of like commoditize and think, yep, it's this. It always costs this. And then eventually you put your price up just a little bit each time or whatever. But what I do kind of varies all too much. And so all too often, that's what I still find hard.
And I feel like it's getting harder because of AI tools.
Yeah, actually, in terms of AI, I think a lot of the voiceover work that I used to do quite a lot of voiceovers for animations and things like that. I can see that that's going to disappear. I think people will just I think high-end stuff, they'll hire a human probably. But I can definitely think, why would they pay me when they can get this free? Like if they, sadly, I think that's the way that might go. But in other terms, I quite like playing around with AI tools because even when they still need humans to kind of, to sort of interact with them and to tame them. Sometimes you see Adobe put out a lot of videos. Hey, look what you can do with. Have you ever actually tried them? The results are awful, and it's because they still need a human to know how to get the best out of that tool. It's still an art in itself. The same with, you can use so many great AI tools in photography, but if you don't have a photographer's eye, you can still make it look awful. And so I still see a role for us humans, kind of like taming the robots.
Yeah, I feel like it's all about skills. It's like creating a music while being deaf. So
yeah, there's a lot of AI tools that will claim to edit a podcast, but I know as a human that there's a lot more to it than that.
And they're getting better, so you never know.
As for that. No, but it's still true. It's still the case that like the actual interview, the actual storytelling, knowing what is a good bit to leave in or to take out, those are human skills. And yeah, you can click a button that says remove all the ums and the ahs and stuff like that these days. But actually, people sometimes an is a good. In
Yeah.
fact, before we recorded this, you even told me that. You know, you said sometimes a pause is a good pause. It's okay. The robots don't necessarily get that, and sometimes they don't understand that humans breathe. Unlike these robots, we actually take breaths, and if you're not editing those properly, they sound all clipped and nasty. So I'm clinging to the fact I might still be needed.
For me, this button remove filler words is like remove the soul. So, and I'm like, no, devil, thank you. I'm still good. Maybe later. So I totally get you. And what is the most time-consuming thing you must deal with as a freelancer, except work itself?
Time consume. What takes the most of my time? Well, I don't know. What takes the most of my. I mean, promoting yourself is constantly a time suck, isn't it? It's like most of your time seems to be doing stuff that you didn't think you were going to be doing. You think I'm going to be editing or making podcasts and videos, and actually, a lot of the time you're doing social media and emailing people. Yeah, do you know that would be a better use of AI to sort out my email inbox? Crikey, that would do me a massive favor. Um, but actually, the thing that used to take me a lot of time that I struggled with was reconciling my bank statements, like taking care of my finances. That took a lot of time. The only reason it's better now is because I made it a weekly thing. Every Friday, I go in and I take care of it, and then it happens much quicker. It's less soul destroying. I still remember what it was I spent that money on. So that is kind of like much I quite enjoy it now.
I thought that you would say that I've just delegated it.
No, no. Do you know I haven't? Because again, there's something quite good about being closer to your finances, still seeing those things. So by seeing the money that you're spending on different subscriptions, if you have to keep reconciling that thing each month, that's quite annoying, especially when you have to go to their website, find the invoice, download it, upload it to your banking thing. So if you're doing that, it has to be worth your while. You start to question the subscriptions you have and things like that. So I quite like being closer to my finances.
Talking about promotion on social media, etc. So let's imagine you created the podcast episode, you created some small videos and clips, and maybe you have some transcription and have prepared posts. So what is your go-to process to sharing and promoting another podcast episode?
So I do take the transcription, which that's actually something that AI does very well these days, but I still go through it and check it. And then I highlight what I think will be good clips. Good text that I can use in emails or in blog posts or in social text clips. And then I create the videos. I sort of save them to my Dropbox and then put them on my phone and upload them to Reels. I've decided not to do TikTok. And I know it's very similar stuff, but you can end up checking on too many things. I get heart palpitations every time I log into TikTok. It just does. I don't want to say I'm too old. I just think I can't cope with it. The same as I don't maintain a Facebook page anymore. I hate logging into Facebook. It's designed to distract you and I don't like it. So I'm focusing, that's something I'm doing more of. I'm focusing on Instagram because I enjoy it. And I'm focusing on LinkedIn because I can see that that's where people are running their businesses, being professional, because I'm trying to seek that for both work and for freelancers to join the community. It makes sense to go there. So I don't enjoy it in the set. I'm enjoying it more. But Instagram, I simply do because I enjoy it. It feels like a nice place to be.
Are you doing YouTube shorts?
No, I should. I know. I do have. So I for a few years I did a weekly vlog about my freelance life and put that on
Mhm.
YouTube. So I have a YouTube channel. Um, but they took a lot of work, so I decided to drop that in the end. But yeah, I should. But again, it's one of those things where to do it really well, there's like a science behind the thumbnails and all sorts of things, right? And so, really, the people who just stick to YouTube, they see success on YouTube. The people who just stick to TikTok see success there. So, I worry whether I spread myself thin.
What is the most nerve-wracking thing that you must deal with as a freelancer?
Nerve-wracking. Personally, it's probably going into a like a networking event. Less so if if it's a freelancer networking event where I already know lots of people. But a business networking event, that's like, even though I might come across as quite extrovert, I have to push through those sort of social things and remind myself that maybe everybody's feeling the same and try and talk. But though that is definitely, yeah, I don't get nervous about most things. I did get nervous about speaking when I started speaking on stage. That was definitely nerve wracking. The first, I actually filmed that for my vlog. I was absolutely so scared of getting up on that stage. I don't know why, really, but
How do you prepare for business networking events?
uh, well, if it's possible to know who's likely to be there, I would say one way to do it is to like check the people out ahead of time. Like
Mhm.
if it's a big event, then there might be certain people that you want to speak to. I actually went to something called the Podcast Show in London earlier this year. It was a big event, uh, and I was checking out people's on there's like a directory of people who were going to be there, and I messaged some of them and like pre-arranged having a coffee with some of them. So that was actually really good. So instead of just wandering around aimlessly, I had a few things slotted in already, but I left enough of the day free that I could wander around and just sort of chat to people. Chatting to people at those bigger events where they have stalls, like their sponsors and stuff, like going up and speaking to them, that's that's actually really valuable in itself. So yeah, that's probably about as much prep as I do. I remember the first time I went to one, I had a load of business cards made, and I still have them. I still have about 200 business cards. Thankfully, I've not really changed my hair. It's got a little bit thinner, but the printing was bad back then. You could probably not tell.
Now it's in like an old school, so you can pretend that it's old style business cards.
Yes, retro. Yeah.
So talking about podcast show, is there one podcaster from whom you are still learning from?
Uh, mm, is it bad to say no?
No, I'm curious, like taking into account all your experience that you have, I'm curious, is there still someone?
Um, yeah, no, I'll say no. I don't think there is, but that's not to say that I don't admire people who I listen to. Um, and I can hear bits that I like about their techniques and bits that I don't like so much and stuff. But I don't try and be like anybody, and yeah, so I'm quite happy with what I do, and actually like the more funny ones that I listen to. I don't try and be like them. I just enjoy listening to them. Quite, yeah.
No, I have this next question. Like, do you ever feel professional loneliness? But you already answered on it on our freelance drive conversation, and like you deal with loneliness just by having an amazing community and people who you can meet up with, and you can just talk to and play Mario Kart with. So I would reframe this question in a way: if you feel lonely, what do you do?
I probably just start a text conversation with somebody in my phone, to be honest. Or go into the community and see if there's anything going on in there to chat with. We also have a thing in the Being Freelance community where you can create a tea break social. Like anyone can do it.
Hmm.
So it's just the idea is that it's, you might be having 20-minute chat, and it doesn't matter if only one person turns up, a bit like you and I right now. Yeah. We could have a nice chat over a cup of tea. 20 minutes later, you're not feeling as lonely. And if something's been bothering you and you've chatted about that, then that's great as well. So I would probably start one of those as well. If I hadn't seen anybody for a couple of days, I'd probably do one of those in the community.
It feels like when you're working in the office, somebody, your colleague is coming to like, hey, let's go for a coffee. So I feel
Mm.
like it's pretty much the same.
Yeah, actually, when I did work in a co-work space as well, I would often say, "Hey, should we go for lunch? Do you want to go for coffee?" I work from home now, um, and I mean, I like that. I like take it. We now have a dog. I take the dog for a walk. Quite happy. But there are still freelancers who live in my town, and sometimes, we'll just meet up for a coffee or for lunch or whatever. It's nice to see people face to face.
If your friend wanted to become a freelancer, what are top 3 things you'd advise them to consider before doing it?
Um, Top 3 things. Well, you've got to have clients. So I would suggest that they get really clear on what it is that they do, so that they can, if you can't say it out loud, then you're not got clear enough about it. So you need to be able to say it so that you can tell people you already know what it is that you're doing, and then they can tell other people. So because one of the first things to do is to tell people you already know that you're doing a thing, and to like create a website or whatever with that message on it as well. So if you can't say it out loud, then you've not thought about it enough. So I think that would be one thing. I'd also tell them to realize that they're not just starting freelancing, they're starting a business, and that's something that took me a while to realize. So to have separate business and personal bank accounts, to do my finances properly, because if you just do that properly from the beginning, man, it's just everything is so much easier. But just treating yourself like a business from the beginning. And whilst it isn't crucial, I would probably say to take a decent photo of yourself, or get someone to take one of yourself and make that the photo that you use everywhere, because that is the start of your branding. Having your face the same on your LinkedIn, on your other social media, on your website, so that have it on the bottom of your emails. Oh, that's another thing I could have said, to set up like a professional URL and have it linked to your email, because some people think that's a bit too tricky to do, and it is a bit of a faff. But it looks so much better to have an email come from a proper URL than to come from a Hotmail or Google Mail or whatever.
Yeah.
So yeah, those things I think are like easy wins. But yeah, definitely realize that you're starting a business.
Steve, I wish to have the sky as a limit, but time is a limit. So the final question, if you were starting freelancing today, what is one thing you would have done differently?
Well, I would have started a podcast, and I would still do being freelance, right? But when you think about it, I started a podcast that was speaking to other freelancers about freelancing. I was learning, I was meeting new people. That's brilliant. And that's why it's still popular now. But what I didn't do was start a podcast that showed my skills and worked for me to bring clients to me. So I've accidentally created a podcast which has drawn an audience of other freelancers, and now there's a community of freelancers, and that's great. It sounds like that was a plan. It wasn't. What I should have done, and what I could have done, and I could still, I guess, is start a podcast that explored podcasting or video marketing or content marketing. Or I could have started a podcast that explored the successes that businesses in my local area had. So I was not just championing freelancers, which is what I do now, but championing my local businesses and becoming known as the person who was making podcasts and videos in that area because of that. Would have been a good idea, Steve. Why didn't you do that?
It's not that late. It's never too late. You know, like
Do you know? I'll make a note. I've not got enough to do. I'll make a note.
You should have started it earlier, but the next best day is today.
It is true. It's very true. Still, nobody has done it in my area, so maybe I should.
Who knows? So yeah, Steve, thank you so much for sharing your experience and such great tips for all who listening. And yeah, for having such an open conversation.
Thanks for having me.
And thank you so much for listening. If you like the show, hit the like button, 5 stars, and share it with your friends. That's it. We're done. See you in the next episode.